Hello, everybody, and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Zozo Initial Research Show. Very successful weekend for me, as you could probably tell by the title and thumbnail of the show. We hit another winner. Roy McIlroy came through. A little bit nerve-wracking on 18 today when he decides to lay up, but two putts secured the victory over a late charging Colin Morikawa. Like I said, very good weekend. I'm trying to contain my excitement. This is two winners in 3 weeks for me. So I'm destined to lose probably for the next 3 years. But it's been a pretty successful run for me lately. Not to mention the fact that DFS went very well as well. Rory was kind of a pivot for his price range. And then if you tuned in last week, especially Wednesday night on the DFS Tactics show, I liked a lot of Taylor Gooch. I liked a lot of Abraham Answer. Though Taylor Gooch was somewhat chalky, but Abraham Answer was certainly a pivot. So all around a very, very good weekend for me. So hopefully you joined in on the success. We'll get into the Zozo here in a little bit, but just a few reminders. As always, the links to my social media are down in the description, along with the schedule for the shows that I have. All statistics provided by FantasyNational.com. It's an amazing resource. It's what I use to pretend to be good at what I'm doing, and all the credit goes to it because I'm clearly not that smart. It's picking these winners for me, and then. Live chat is open. I really hope you're live. I want to hear how you did this weekend. I'm hoping you all joined in on the success with me. Whatever DFS tactic you used. Whether you went stars and scrubs, balanced. Who were some of your bigger plays this weekend? So join me in chat. Lastly, and I kind of alluded to it previously last week and a little bit earlier. I've got some exciting news for you all. I've been teasing it. So now I can tell you October 31st, which will be an initial research show. I'm not exactly sure which tournament it is, but I have kind of an official announcement for you all. So I'm quite excited. Please tune in for that show, as I'll have quite a bit to reveal or say. But exciting times coming up. But enough of that. Enough gloating about the win this week. Let's see if we can either keep the train rolling and perhaps win a little bit more money, or more than likely give it all away again. As we look at the 2022 Zozo, and we're going to transition over here to where we normally start. Unfortunately, the tournament fact sheet for this year's Zozo is not out yet, and I checked right before I came live. So I've got last year's tournament fact sheet here, and it's with the CJ Cup being a Korean tournament. It used to be played in Korea and so on. This is kind of the Japanese parallel, I guess you can say, as there will be quite a few Japanese participants this week. We are in Thousand Oaks, California, at Sherwood Country Club. And this event was played at Sherwood last year, and we'll get into some of the data and kind of happenstances of last year. But a couple of things really jumped out at me when I looked over this. It's a par 72 at only 7,000 yards, or a little bit over it. This is an extremely short course. Extremely short. It's a Jack Nicklaus design. Originally in 1989, renovated recently in 2016. It's a very private course, so not a lot of traffic on it. But it's a very, very, very fast greens. kind of like what you saw this week at the CJ Cup. But again, this was the first thing that jumped out at me. A par 72 at just over 7,000 yards. Some par 70s are longer than that. So this being a par 72, extremely, I just can't say that. It's extremely short. So we're definitely going to be looking at some short course metrics over the course of the week. Some other notable course information. The average green size is 7,200 square feet, which is rather large for the PGA Tour. Last I checked, most PGA Tour events were roughly 6,000 square feet. So this is quite large in regards to average green size. Not a whole lot of bunkers, but not a lot of fairway either. So these are going to be pretty difficult to hit. If anything about Jack Nicklaus designs come into play here, and full disclosure, I'm not terribly familiar with Sherwood. These are probably going to be some club down layup type driving and positioning type holes where strategically positioned bunkers come into play. Kind of like, think of Harbor Town, RBC Heritage, where even though that's a Pete Dye design, you've got a lot of club down, a lot of strategy positioning off the tee. So not a lot of bunkers, not a lot of fairway at all. There are 4 water hazards that come into play on 8 holes, so you can definitely run into trouble here at this course. And it actually reminds me of a course we'll look at a little bit later that I think will be a pretty good comparison course. And I have some notes here for you all on that. We are on bent grass greens, and you can see that they are cut extremely short. I believe last week the CJ Cup was almost, I think it was 0.095. It might have been 900ths like this, but these are 2 of the shortest cut greens that I have seen. So these are going to be very fast, probably lightning by Fantasy National's filter statistic. It's bent grass all the way around, except for in the rough where you have some ryegrass. The other kind of interesting thing for Sherwood, the back 9 is quite interesting, and I believe it's the only course that does this. The back 9 has 3 par 3s, 3 par 4s, and 3 par 5s. So there is it makes for quite a fun back 9 on a Sunday. It really does. Which means there's only 1 par 3 and 1 par 5 that means there's only 3 par 4s. We'll see when we get to this course breakdown. It makes it weird on the front 9. We'll see in the course breakdown, but that's a very unique, interesting feature here of Sherwood Country Club. So with that, let's head on over to Fantasy National, and I have not done any filtering or anything to that effect. I'm going to go ahead and kind of start where I have been the last few tournaments here, just kind of give you an overall view, and this does not include Sunday's statistics from the CJ Cup, so keep that in mind. But in a pure strokes gained total view, if a player has 50 rounds, so the last 50 rounds in the last 6 months, Colin Morikawa is your number 1 strokes gained total player. No surprise there. But I think one of the first things I kind of want to do, because this is a Jack Nicklaus design, and there are a few Jack Nicklaus courses we can look at in Fantasy National. I'm going to go ahead and remove this 6 months thing here. So there are a few courses we can take a look at. Glen Abbey here. Glen Abbey is the former host of the Canadian Open. It hosted the Canadian Open up until 2018, I believe. So there's definitely some things we can look at there. Muirfield Village, of course, is the Memorial Tournament hosted by Jack Nicklaus, every year hosted by Nationwide, but it's Jack Nicklaus's course. Happens every year on the PGA Tour, so we can definitely take a look there, see if there's any correlation between high finishes there and here at the Zozo, or some course statistics. PGA National and Nicklaus Tournament course. Oh gosh dang it. So the Nicklaus Tournament course and PGA West are both part of the same tournament, the American Express, in January after the Hawaii swing, or the Hawaiian double, I think they call it. This is the first tournament, the American Express, on continental soil in the new year. It's a 54-hole cut that is generally played on 3 courses: La Quinta, Resort, PGA National, and Nicklaus Tournament course, with PGA West Nicklaus being the championship round. Then there's PGA National, and I know I've been butchering the two. PGA West is for the American Express. PGA National is where the Honda happens. And that's played every year. It's down in Florida. But there's a lot of similarities here, and I think this is the course I was referring to, especially being a strategy course with a lot of water in play. You really have to work your way around that course. So there's going to be definitely some comparisons there that I would like to look at, with one exception. And then finally, the other course is the Concession. I mean, there's Valhalla here, but that was a major. The Concession, which was the host of the WGC this past tour season, instead of playing the WGC Mexico, it was still the same week, just the WGC Concession. So I just wanted to give you all some comparison courses for to maybe look at this week when you're starting your research. Definitely take a look at Muirfield. Obviously, it's Jack Nicklaus's tournament. We'll see if there's any similarities between bent grass greens and water and all that stuff. I'm definitely going to be taking a look at PGA National for the Honda, and then the American Express as well. And if we have time tonight, we'll kind of take a look into it. But this is going to be more of an overview type situation. With that, let's look into the actual course here at Sherwood. And as I mentioned, it's a par 72. So you do have 2 par 5s on the front and 2 par 3s on the front. So you have your regular allotment of 5 par 4s, but only 3 on the back. So this means you have 5 par 5s, 5 par 3s, and 8 par 4s, which is quite a bit different. It's the only course that I have seen with that kind of setup on a par 72. Again, taking a look here, there are certainly places where you can find some trouble. But there are your chances at some low scores here. An eagle rate at 3% here, 2.5, 2.5. And if you paid attention, especially last week with the initial research show, the same night 1 week ago, I had a really strong feeling that this course for the CJ Cup, the Summit, I thought was going to be that would play very easy. Again, it was just a kind of a gut feel as I looked over the course and such, because it had never been played. It turned out, while I wasn't correct on everything, a lot of it did come true, especially how easy the par 5s were. An interesting statistic from this past week, Abraham Answer went -7 on, I think it was hole 12, 13, whatever the first par 5, 14, excuse me. He went -7 for the tournament on that hole alone, including 2 eagles and an albatross. And all the par 5s were just devoured this past week at the CJ Cup. So I was pretty happy with my analysis there. A lot of things that I thought would come true did. And I am seeing here at Sherwood with 5 par 5s, and we'll see the graph here in a bit, that this is another course where you absolutely have to take advantage of your par 5s. Most PGA events are like that. It is certainly heightened or drastically the case this week. Not to say that there isn't trouble. You can see here the hardest hole at Sherwood plays 2/10 over par as a par 3. But something else that I want to bring up: the 5th hardest hole is essentially par, and the 6th hardest hole is under par. So if a hole's in red, which means it's one of the toughest third of the course, 1 through 6 difficulty is in red, 7 through 12 in yellow, at least by Fantasy National, and then 13 through 18 being green. Even one of the quote tough holes is still under par here. That's going to tell you that just like this past week at the CJ Cup, this is an easy course. So we're going to be looking at a whole lot of short metrics and a whole lot of easy metrics. I hesitated away from it at the CJ Cup just because the tournament had never been held there. We weren't sure how the course was going to be set up. Turned out it was real easy. But anyway, coming back to Sherwood, average stroke gain by shot type, no surprise. Approach being the dominant shot type here. On a club down, on a forced layup, club down strategy type course, approach is always going to be the most important. What's surprising to me is that putting normally is second, and here it's off the tee, which means you really have to hit either your fairways, or you have to be such an extremely good driver of the golf ball and take advantage of your length while still essentially hitting the fairway. Because most guys are going to have to club down to hit the fairway. So if you're able to take driver and still hit fairways, you're gaining a lot of advantage. So we'll definitely see who marries the distance and the fairways hit this week, at least in the data dive, and we'll see if that comes to fruition tomorrow in the data dive show. But as we get to stroke gain by hole, by par, like I said, the par 5s are so astronomically, it's almost double the importance of the par 4s and the par 3s. You put the 3s and the 4s together, they might equal to par 5s. That's how important the par 5s are here at Sherwood. So we're definitely going to be looking at par 5 efficiency. Probably birdies are better. Maybe eagles. I don't know how I feel about trying to go eagles. Eagles was something that I toyed around with last week with the CJ Cup. I ended up not using it. It would have come in pretty handy. Although I really can't complain too much since I hit Rory as the winner. But still, it was something I definitely toyed with. So going to be a lot of focus on the par 5s here this week. For obvious reasons. Hole composition, not a lot to narrow in on, honestly. You've got 5 par 3s, one at each except for a middle length that has 2. Kind of the same with the par 4s. You got a drivable par 4, a pretty short one, and then kind of 2 longer ones. And again in the par 5s. So there's not a plurality, a majority of any type of length of par. So I don't know if there's going to be a lot to gather there, at least by this initial look. We'll see in the data dive tomorrow if there's like a hidden advantage, I'll say, in the sense that maybe the guys that play this drivable par 4 end up doing the best or whatnot. We'll definitely look at that in the data dive tomorrow. But as I was speaking to earlier, driving accuracy here is so much higher. It's a forced layup, type course with essentially 74% of the field hitting the fairway here versus 62% in a normal tour event. Just checking chat. Again, greens higher here than the average tour event. That's speaking to the large greens that are here. Again, average of 1,200 square feet per green. Scrambling here, also higher. But you can see if there's a par 72, you can see how many higher scores there are here. With the most common being 5 under. So this is going to be a very easy course. Not a lot of 3-putts here. So that means that they're probably pretty flat greens. Even if they're fast, if there's not a lot of slope or break, PGA Tour pros will tend to do pretty well on those. And again, speaking to the nature of the golf course, distance is a lot less here than it is on a normal tour course, especially this week, as they've been playing at altitude, at elevation in Vegas. Now they could be at altitude here at Thousand Oaks. I don't know, but I don't think they are. At least they're not to the level that Vegas is. So definitely the ball won't travel as far off the tee because of the altitude or lack thereof. Also due to the course design. And then lastly, greens in regulation proximity, almost 30 feet here, 28 3/4. Surprisingly, because of the large greens, they're not a lot further away from the hole on their approach shots. So that means these greens are pretty receptive. The rough might not be terrible to hit out of. I know the last 2 weeks we looked at some short rough conditions, who plays the best in short rough. Don't think that's going to come into play here. A sneak peek earlier today showed that the rough is actually classified as long here. But a couple of takeaways from these graphs. Again, it's a forced layup course, strategic off the tee. So a lot less driving distance, a lot more fairways, a lot more greens in regulation, and absolutely, I don't know if I said absolutely, but absolutely take advantage of the par 5s. Let's look at some the tournament history here. And again, I only want to focus on 2021. The reason being, and I'll come back to this page here in a second, the historic conditions. This was played at Sherwood last year as a no-cut event, as it is this year. But the year prior was at Accordia. So while we can definitely take a look at that, I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock into it. Again, Sherwood last year, it played all easy, played on bent, long rough, and lightning greens. So we're definitely going to be focusing on the 2021 in the data dive, because Accordia is over in Japan. So definitely going to focus on that. But having said that, let's look at the 2021 leaderboard, and you can see that the top 3 are not here this week. And you can see most guys didn't play this last year. You only have a few guys who are returning to play this. Again, this is being an invitational style tournament. It's going to be treated a lot like the CJ Cup as we move forward, especially in the DFS portion, where you're going to have to find your uniqueness, since 6 of 6 is guaranteed to get through. But not a lot of success of the guys that are returning this year. You've got Brian Palmer, Lonto Griffin, Munoz, and Xander were okay. Neiman and Noren, those were the only guys at top 20. So you only have 6 guys who top 20 returning, and then the rest of these guys were pretty darn mediocre. And again, it's one tournament. It's a very small sample, so we don't want to read too much into it. But since that's the only data we have, we do need to parse it somewhat and see what information we can extract from it. So I showed you the historic conditions. Lightning, I'm definitely going to be using fast and lightning bent greens again, like we were. Like we were at the Summit Club. I'm not going to use probably any long rough statistics. I only wanted to look at short rough because it was rare to find short rough. You more typically find long rough on PGA Tour events, but we're definitely going to be looking at easy courses, short courses. Even though the length here isn't given, we saw the tournament fact sheet layout last year, right at 7,000 yards on a par 72. That I can't say it enough. That is extremely short. So let's take a quick look at the leaderboard. I don't want to go too much into this because we do this kind of stuff with the Data Dive show. But you can see here, just speaking to how easy the course was, you had 23 as your winner and 22s were tied for second. Anytime you reach that threshold of about 20 under, give or take, maybe 19, 21, you get into the easy category. So this is definitely going to play easy. We saw that the average round was roughly 67, which would be 5 under. So minus 20 would have gotten you solo fourth last year. So again, very, very easy. The capability to go extremely low is here. Let's see, 64. So Munoz led last year, the first round with a 64. There's a 61 by Richie Werenski. You had a few 63s, 64. So the capability to go low is there. But there's chances to get, tricked up or, caught up along the way. You got Adam Long, who was, +5. Sakito was shot an 80. 77. Answer had 77 last year, 78. So due to the water on the course, there are chances where you can get in a lot of trouble here. But generally speaking, it's pretty darn easy. You can see here that Ryan Palmer is the only one of the top 7 that are returning. So no John Rahm, no Justin Thomas, no Patrick Cantlay, Bubba, Cam Smith, who had a really darn good CJ Cup that people probably didn't realize, kind of got lost in. Russell Henley the same way. There's Lonto Griffin, Munoz we talked about. There's not a lot of returning players, I'll say, from last year, and there's not a lot of repeat players from this week's CJ Cup. I just want to take a very, very quick look here. Strokes gained, tee somewhat pretty important. Pretty important. Joel Damon didn't do great, but look at these approach numbers. They're really, really high. That's going to tend to lead to a lot of success. Surprisingly, a lot of putting, minus Russell Henley, who apparently just went full Sergio and just didn't putt with his eyes open. There are some pretty high putting numbers here too. It's kind of surprising to see that this is lower based on the graph we saw at the course breakdown than off the tee. Just interesting. And then obviously just taking a look at the par 5s here. Joel Damon didn't take advantage of them. Neither did these two, but you've got a lot of green and high green here at the top of the leaderboard. So, like I said, don't want to go too much into this. We'll save this for the data dive tomorrow. Let's take a quick look here at some different types of metrics. Again, because we know that we're on fast bent greens, let's take a look. We've got green speed fast, green speed lightning. Definitely want to take off this Jack Nicklaus filter. I do apologize for that. Fast and lightning on bent. And again, remember, this does not have the Sunday statistics from the CJ Cup. But you've got Cameron Tringali is your number one performer on fast lightning bent greens. So Tringali, Brendan Todd, Sam Ryder, Alex Noren, and Mackenzie Hughes are your top 5. Followed by Troy Merritt, Andrew Putnam, Wyndham Clark, Adam Long, and Pat Perez. I'm going to go ahead and re-add these filters here. I'm not going to change the round size. We're just going to kind of jump around willy-nilly here. So that changed a little bit. See, I reduced it to the last 6 months instead of all records. So now, it's keeping the same. That's why it's important to check your filters. Keeping the same filters. Bent greens, fast and lightning speeds. You actually come to Alex Noren as number 1. I think he was last week as well. Sam Ryder, Troy Merritt, Tringali still there, and Ricky Fowler. Ricky Fowler putt very, very well this week. It just let him down Sunday. But he was putting very, very well this week at the CJ Cup. And then Pat Perez also tied for 5th. And the rest of the top 10 is Adam Long, Eric Van Rooyen, Bill Haas, and Mackenzie Hughes. So still a lot of overlap, but in a different order. And I think Brennan Todd might have been in the top 10 and fell out and so on. I'm going to see if I can't find the guys who I know for sure played this past week. Noren, I know. Tringali played. Fowler. I don't remember if Pat Perez. I know Eric Van Rooyen was there. I can't remember if Mackenzie Hughes was there. Grace, I know was. McNeely was pretty good for me in DFS as well. Streb was. Hoffman? I don't think so. Munoz was. Shoffley. KH Lee was. Neiman. No, I don't think Neiman was there. Lonto, Doc Redman, Wyndham Clark, Tommy. Sorry, I could have done this a little earlier. I was watching the end of the CJ Cup just to make sure I still was a winner. I felt pretty good when Rory went up 3, and then I saw Colin Morikawa eagle 18, and that kind of put me on alert a little bit. I'll have to admit, was a bit concerned. Siwoo had a really bad Sunday, really bad Sunday. I think it was like +6. Anyway, so there's some putt. There's the first look at some putting statistics, just an overall feel for it. And if I show the favorites again, I might have missed a few guys, but of the guys that are returning from the CJ Cup, or at least playing back-to-back weeks, I shouldn't say returning. I'll do that. I'll make sure to do that. I need to make a note to see who's returning from last year's Zozo. That would be something to be interested to look at. But anyway, Noren, Tringali, Fowler, EVR, Brandon Grace, with Brandon Grace being 13th. Those are your top 5 of the guys that are coming back or going back-to-back weeks. Let's take a look at just approach, since it's so very important here. I'm going to take off the greens. I'm just going to take a look at a big view. I mean, last 50 rounds is a humongous sample size. No surprise. Colin Morikawa, Paul Casey, Griot, Keegan, Kyle Stanley. Generally a pretty darn good approach player. He's fallen off a little bit, but I mean, you can see last 10 tournaments he's gained upwards of 3 on approach. I mean, you've got some really high numbers here. 4.5, 7, 8, 5.5. That's a lot of strokes gained approach. Generally my type of player. The problem is with Kyle Stanley, he is a notoriously bad putter. I don't mind bad putting as long as you can mix in a few high putting. I mean, when he does putt well, he generally putts pretty well, but these greens are too far between these massive amounts of red for me to like Kyle Stanley much. There are times where I'll definitely use him and kind of target him, but probably won't be this week, considering he's generally best when it's difficult, and it is squarely in this category here this week. So it's Kyle Stanley, Matthew Neesmith, another player that pops on these approach metrics, but not good, and a lot of others. Xander, Matsuyama, Will Z. Yep. Actually, while I have it up, let's just take a quick look at proximity. Let's see, because the proximity chart wasn't there. on the course breakdown. That's interesting. Proximity from 200 plus. Kind of makes sense if it's a forced layup type course, but still, the courses are so short. I'm surprised that 200 plus was the main driver there. Interesting. The only reason I wanted to take a quick look at it is because I don't remember. Yeah, see, normally the approach shot distribution chart is right here, and it's just blank. I don't know if they don't use it for only one tournament or whatnot. Hey, Brian, how you doing, buddy? I'm sorry, I just saw this. Hey, profit is profit, man. Profit is profit. You'd rather win a little than lose, period. So, hey, I did really, really well. I had a lot of Rory. He was, this is another no-cut event. The Zozo, so the CJ Cup is kind of the Korean, what's the word I want to use? Themed, I guess. There's a lot of Korean players at the CJ Cup, whereas this is the Japanese parallel. There will be a lot of Japanese players here at the Zozo. But yeah, I did really well. I had a lot of Abraham answer. He was very, very, little owned. Which I guess I kind of understood why, but he played great this week. Kind of lost it on Sunday. I had quite a bit of Rory because he was technically a pivot in his range. Up until Sunday, I was kind of lamenting the fact that I didn't have much Spieth. He kind of backed up a little bit. Keith Mitchell really drove me nuts the first 3 days or the first 2.5 days. Kind of fell apart Saturday and then late Saturday and Sunday. Because I didn't have any Keith Mitchell, but overall I did really well. And then hopefully you saw my tweet Wednesday night that I hit Rory. Granted, he was one of the favorites, but it's still a win. But I'm glad to hear that you did well too, Brian. Who was your big star that you used? Kind of interesting. Did you go like a stars and scrubs approach? Did you go balance? Because for me, the balance was the way to go because you could fit Rory, Answer, and you didn't have to go too far down. Vegas and Noren, yeah. I didn't have Noren very high. He was a decent in the putting metrics, but he didn't rate out very well. And of course, if that's where you are in the price board, it is what it is. But yeah. I liked Sunjay a lot this week. I really liked Colin Morikawa. A lot of people liked Colin, so that was the chalk I was kind of willing to eat. Sunjay, he was kind of middle of the road ownership. I really liked Sunjay this week. Lee, okay. I had an outright win bet on Hovland. I avoided Hovland at all costs in DFS. Kind of hurt some, kind of helped some, I liked Vegas a lot too. I used a little bit of Vegas, but he was so popular in his area of the price board that I tried not to go down there too far. But did you end up doing what you said last week, only generating like 2 or 3 lineups and focusing on those? And if you did, who were maybe a couple of different players that you used? Because generally speaking, I said last week as many as I can. It was about 150 this week, and kind of mixed and matched in my contests that I was in, which sometimes can drive you nuts that you have the right players and just different in the wrong combinations. But it it worked out for me this week. So while I'll wait to hear from you, Brian. Let's cover just a couple more things here. Let's see. We'll look at these par fives because they're so very, very important here at Sherwood. Kind of no surprise here. Xander, Paul Casey, Tringali, Pat Perez has been high up on these on a couple of these statistics. 2 laps both landing rounds. Yeah. That's what I mentioned last week, that I focus a lot on double ups. I mean, I'll play the bigger tournaments, but I do a lot of double ups because I am confident in myself to find a pretty optimal lineup. And the thing about a double up is you know the higher place finish isn't going to make any more than the guy that is the cutoff of the double up. They're all going to make the same. So generally speaking, in a double up, you just want to find your best lineup. Now, granted, you do need to find some uniqueness there, but I'm more confident in my ability to hit my double ups than I am trying to get a whole lot of high finishes on these big tournaments, say. Not to say that I haven't had a couple, I have, but generally when I'm in those type of contests, I'll have, if I'm in for 20 lineups, I'll get, 6 or 7 that make like if I'm in $1 per entry, it'll make $1.50, 6 or 7 of those lineups, and I might get a $5 one. So I generally place more lineups instead of get the high finishes. But double ups is where I do well, and then I just hope to hit a winner from week to week, and I've hit 2 now in 3. And I'll take very, very little credit for that. A lot of it is Fantasy National, absolutely. And then you should probably take everything I say with a bit of salt now, or grain of salt, because since I've won 2 in 3 weeks, probably destined to lose for the next 3 years. Like I said, 2 in 3 weeks. I've hit 4 in the past, I think, 2.5 months. So we're a bit on a roll. I'm sure it'll cool off, but let's ride the hot wave while we got it. Yeah, looking at these par 5s, not a lot of interesting names here. Maybe Pat Perez, Garrett Higo. Higo's somebody I really like for this upcoming year. Adam Shank, Maverick McNeely. McNeely's somebody else too that I really had a lot of this week. I really liked. He was somewhat popular, but he played well enough to justify his relative chalk. So Brian, I don't know when you jumped in. I don't know if you saw the intro. I've got some exciting news coming on October 31st. So make sure you tune in for that. But we are at a Jack Nicklaus course. So there's definitely going to be a lot of Jack Nicklaus architect filter used this week. And it's a very, very short course. Very short. That's the summary I'll give you. If you jumped in late, make sure you catch the beginning part of the show. A lot of good info there, and I try to be humble, but you can't fake the enthusiasm I have for for having the winner. But yeah, if there's anyone else out there, or Brian, whatever if there's something that you want to see real quick, I don't want to get too much into the data just because that's what we do tomorrow night. And since there's only really 1 year of data to look at, it's we're gonna have to dig in deep because in 2020 this was played over in Japan. So we're going to have to mainly focus on 2021, extract whatever data we can out of that, parse that information. It's just interesting to see that either they've declined to play or didn't earn the invitation back, that there's not a lot of returning players from last year. That's very interesting. Yeah, you can see here, I mean, there's not a lot of people that have played this course. So while it's not a brand new course, we might treat it like such. It'd be interesting to see. But I think that's going to mainly do that for tonight's initial research show. A little bit of a shorter show, I know, but we'll dig in tomorrow in the data dive and really go into it. So Let's see. I'm just trying to think of anything else that I want to cover real quick. We looked at the tournament fact sheet from last year. It's not out yet. Yeah, I think that's going to do it. Brian, I appreciate the follow on Twitter, and I appreciate everybody's support that's been with me. Hopefully, you all have shared in the success. Let's make a goal here to try to find a big DFS lineup this week. Generally speaking, I'm better at the double ups and finding your small profits and avoiding the big losses. But hopefully we can still do that and maybe find a big winner this week. So make sure to tune in tomorrow for the Data Dive show. We're gonna have a lot of good stuff there. And again, I've got some really exciting news that I'll officially reveal or announce on October 31st. So really looking forward to that, and some more content actually will be coming out here fairly soon. So with that, that's going to do it for the 2022 Zozo initial research show. Hopefully you all did very well in DFS or in your outright betting this week at the CJ Cup. Again, tune in tomorrow for the Data Dive show. For any bets that you made this week at the CJ Cup, for any bets you're thinking about making next week at the Zozo, and until I see you tomorrow night, may all your bets be profitable.